Greetings, Acolytes of the Force, and welcome back to the Archives. The great Count Dooku is known as one of the finest duelists of an entire generation. If not for the existence of Yoda or Darth Sidious, Dooku was considered the prime lightsaber duelist of the Clone Wars era, with many believing that Dooku actually outclassed Sidious and Yoda. Surprisingly though, Dooku's skill with the blade wasn't very well respected in the Jedi Order, especially when he first decided that it would be his path to study the way of Jedi combat. Grandmaster Yoda in particular was dubious about his apprentice's dedication to Form 2 Makashi, beyond Dooku's chosen form. Yoda was also quite disapproving of the way that Dooku constructed his lightsaber. All of this would eventually lead to Yoda and Dooku getting in a heated argument about the practicality of specializing in saber-to-saber combat, especially considering the era of peace that both Jedi were experiencing. In today's holocron, we are going to highlight exactly why Dooku made these choices with his lightsaber, and discuss why Yoda was actually wrong to say that Dooku's decisions were impractical. But right before we cut our way into this topic, we want to invite you to join us if you haven't already. Our library is updating every day with holocrons just like this one, so be sure to slash that subscribe button and leave a comment telling us what topics you want to hear about and explored further. So now, my friends, let us begin. The young Dooku was always a contrarian when growing up in the temple. From his approach to his studies to the way he carried himself, he was set apart from the rest of the younglings. He was always more inclined towards battle, and although he had a curiosity towards the dark side, Dooku staunchly believed in the Jedi values of protecting innocence. It was this staunch belief that would eventually lead him to becoming disillusioned with the Jedi, since they were only protecting planets that were a part of the Republic. But anyway, Dooku's studies into the Sith led him to a truth that no other Jedi was able to accept. Dooku believed that the Sith were not gone. Dooku was one of the only ones who picked up on the historical inconsistencies about the ending of the Sith Order. Not only was he skilled, but he was a brilliant mind, and because of this, Dooku decided that he would prepare in case the Jedi should ever encounter the Dark Acolytes in the future. A certain Jedi Master would pretend to be a Sith Lord in order to test him. Dooku confronted this Jedi and dueled her one-on-one in one of the Jedi Temple's balconies. He would even get very close to defeating her before he was stopped by Yoda. It was from that point on that Yoda had his eyes on Dooku, and would eventually take the boy as his own personal apprentice, something that was largely unheard of for a Jedi Grand Master. Sometime later, Dooku chose to specialize in Makashi, and dedicated most of his time to learning the ins and outs of lightsaber combat. This was largely concerning for Yoda, who believed that Dooku may be falling away from the Jedi path. Once Dooku built his lightsaber with a curved hilt, discarding the original, that's when Dooku and Yoda would get into a heated argument about his choices. Yoda did not believe that the Sith could be out there, and was totally denying that it was even a possibility. The Jedi Council and the vast majority of Jedi at the time refused to believe that the Sith existed. The implications of such an idea were not one that they were willing to even consider. As a result, anytime a Jedi seemed to be more saber combat focused, it raised many questions. At the time, there were no saber-wielding opponents to encounter on the regular in the galaxy, and as such, most Jedi specialized in other forms, with the dueling forms becoming more and more rare. This was especially concerning because Makashi focuses one true purpose, while many of the other forms had various functions. Makashi, though, had one: to defeat a lightsaber wielder. Other forms like Sarisu, Naiman, and Ataru are fit to be used in a wide variety of scenarios. However, Makashi was specifically meant for saber-on-saber combat with a single opponent. It wasn't fantastic at blast deflection, and was certainly poor when facing multiple enemies. However, the effectiveness of Form 2 in single combat was unmatched. When the situation does arise for a Makashi user to show their talent, the battle automatically begins in their favor. With measured footwork, surgically precise strikes, and a big focus on disarmament, Form 2 is the undisputed champion of single saber combat. This meant that should a Makashi master decide to issue a formal challenge to another wielder of the Force, the scales are tipped in their favor unless the opponent excels in single combat, which many Jedi at the time did not. This is what made Dooku such a deadly force, as he didn't just study Makashi, he was obsessed with it. He would drill countless hours in the training hall, not accepting anything less of himself than complete and utter perfection. The result was nothing short of mastery. He was described as a fencer, one who moved so gracefully with the blade that it was as if he was dancing. Movement, positioning, leverage. To Dooku, these were as natural to him as breathing. Dooku, though, wasn't satisfied with just specializing in the best combat form. He needed to maximize his effectiveness in a duel, and with that in mind, he styled his lightsaber to have an elbow bend in the hilt, giving it its famous curved design. The curved hilt of the lightsaber is one that is specifically important because it was a design choice that was solely meant for dueling. This is what made Yoda confront Dooku. This final design change, as a curved hilt, was a declaration that his lightsaber was a weapon meant to kill. When one puts a curve in their lightsaber hilt, it creates a unique function that allows the saber to be far more unpredictable and surgically precise. It was more ergonomic, which allowed for it to rest comfortably in the palm of the hand. This allowed for the practitioner to make their strikes more accurate and even faster. Thrusts became quick jabs, and entire slashes only required the duelist to flick their wrist. Many of the fencers in our own world, which are Olympic fencers, prefer the curved hilted design, with Sir Christopher Lee, a famous fencer himself, also preferring the design. But for wielders of the Force, the curved hilt held a secret function. Lightsaber duelists drill for endless hours to combine their Force intuition with their blade, and most of the time, they are perfectly precise, able to predict where their opponent's weapon is at all times. But with this curved hilt, it causes the blade strikes to be angled just a few centimeters off of where a standard lightsaber would be, just enough to where the blade will be more likely to slip past, whereas the opponent believes that it will actually land. For Force sensitives that all rely on this precision, just a few centimeters is life and death, and Dooku knew this. It was for his lightsaber, and Dooku's unshakable belief that the Sith were not gone, that caused a massive conflict between himself and Grandmaster Yoda. What's shocking though, is Yoda was actually wrong at the time. Not only were the Sith alive, but Yoda was denying the fact that the Dark Acolytes still existed, even believing that the Sith did not know how to construct lightsabers of their own if they were around at all. Yoda believed that the Sith, if they even existed anymore, were exceptionally weak and far beyond the skills of even a common Jedi. Dark Jedi were still a rarity, but they existed, not to mention that Jedi did fall to the dark side every now and then, although it would be a long time before Dooku actually fought other saber wielders. His skill with the lightsaber made him completely unstoppable to any being in the galaxy, blaster wielder or not. There were still many beings who used vibro weapons, electrostaffs, and other melee options on the battlefield. These things were not yet obsolete, and many pirates, raiders, and even government bodyguards carried them along with blasters. Dooku proved several times to be able to absolutely dismantle any being who came close to him. While saber-to-saber combat was a rarity, Dooku's quick reflexes came as a result of his training in Form 2, making him indomitable. We see this in action in Tales of the Jedi. It didn't matter what sort of weapon his enemy used. Dooku was unshakable. In fact, he got so good at Makashi that he made up for its weaknesses by sheer skill and grit alone. He was able to deflect blaster bolts just as good as a Sarisu wielder, and multiple opponents were never a problem for the great Dooku, who had learned to isolate individuals and pick them apart systematically. He could fend off Legends General Grievous with ease, and was able to literally stalemate Grandmaster Yoda on Geonosis, a feat unheard of. Dooku definitively won the argument when he himself turned to the dark side. Makashi was more important than ever. The galaxy needed it. And that's just the thing. It doesn't matter what era the Jedi Order find themselves in. It is always practical to have a strong foundation on one's dueling skills. Something that Yoda's Jedi had forgot. Dooku proved its practicality, the practicality of the curved-hilted lightsaber, and one's skill in combat is only ever measured by the dedication of the individual. But anyway, my friends, this is why Yoda hated Dooku's lightsaber and his form, but ultimately why he was wrong. Do you believe in the complete correctness of Dooku in this scenario, or do you believe that Yoda had a point and saw the darkness in his apprentice? Thank you as always, my friends, so much for visiting the archives today, and may the Force be with you.